Trespassing is a criminal offense in New York involving an individual entering or remaining on a property without the owner's consent. The act of trespassing can result in various legal consequences, depending on the specific details of the incident. Trespass offenses in New York can result in charges that can range from a violation to a felony. Definition and types of trespassing under New York law. Trespassing is defined as knowingly intruding on or entering another person's property without authorization. It involves crossing boundaries set by the property owner without the owner's consent or knowledge. There are several types of trespassing in New York. Simple trespass, NY Penal Code Section 140.05, occurs when an individual enters or remains unlawfully on a property without explicit permission from the owner. This is considered a violation rather than a misdemeanor or felony. Simple trespass is a violation punishable by a fine of up to $250 or up to 15 days in jail. It is not considered a crime. If a person is convicted of simple trespass, it will not go on their criminal record. Criminal trespass. Criminal trespass involves unlawful entry or remaining in a building or property without permission from the property owner. The charges a person receives depend on the kind of establishment they unlawfully entered, if the person had a weapon, and if they have a prior history of criminal offenses. Criminal trespass in New York is divided into 3 degrees. Criminal trespass in the 3rd degree, NY Penal Code Section 140.10. A person commits the crime of criminal trespass in the 3rd degree if they knowingly and unlawfully entered and remained on the property of another person and the property is enclosed to prevent intruders, used as a camp or a school, a housing project, a railroad yard. Criminal trespass in the 3rd degree is a Class B misdemeanor, punishable by up to 3 months in jail. A 1-year probation period can also be imposed instead of jail time. Criminal trespass in the 2nd degree, NY Penal Code Section 140.15. A person commits the crime of criminal trespass in the 2nd degree if they knowingly and unlawfully entered and remained on the property of another person in the property as a dwelling or a residential property or a place where a person lodges in at night. The offender is a Level 2 or 3 sex offender. New York Sex Offender Registration Act entering a school where their victim is attending. Criminal trespass in the 2nd degree Class A misdemeanor, punishable by up to 1 year in jail. Criminal trespass in the 1st degree, NY Penal Code Section 140.17. A person commits the crime of criminal trespass in the 1st degree if they knowingly and unlawfully entered and remained on the property of another person in the offender was possessing a deadly weapon or explosives. Under New York law, a deadly weapon can be a loaded weapon from which a shot can be discharged, or a knife, dagger, billy club, or knuckles. The offender was possessing a firearm or knew that an accomplice possessed a firearm. Criminal versus civil trespassing. Criminal trespassing and civil trespassing are 2 different legal concepts with varying consequences. While criminal trespassing involves a violation of the law and prosecution by the state, civil trespassing is a claim brought by the property owner seeking monetary damages. Assessing your trespassing charge. When facing a trespassing charge, it is important to assess the various aspects of the case to determine the optimal course of action to take. A thorough understanding of the elements of the charge, gathering all relevant evidence, and identifying potential defenses can help you navigate the legal process and potentially minimize the severity of the consequences, either by a reduction of the charges or securing a dismissal. Understanding the elements of your charge. When evaluating your trespassing charges, it's important to understand the essential elements that constitute a trespassing offense. In New York, trespassing involves unlawfully entering or remaining on another person's property without permission. The prosecution must establish several elements to successfully convict you of trespassing. These elements often include proving whether the accused knowingly entered or remained on another person's property, the accused had no legal right or authority to be on the property, the property owner forbade entry or asked the accused to leave. Gathering evidence and documentation. In preparation for your case, your attorney will gather all available evidence and documentation that may help refute the charges against you or strengthen your defense. Evidence and supporting information may include the following: witness statements, photos, videos, or audio recordings, communication records, police reports. Common defenses against trespassing charges. Trespassing is the act of unlawfully entering or remaining on another person's property without their consent. Charges of criminal trespass can be reduced or dropped depending on whether the prosecution can successfully substantiate and prove the elements of the charges. Common trespassing defenses include lack of intent. A trespassing charge typically requires that the defendant acted with intent, meaning they knowingly and willfully entered or remained on the property without permission. If the accused can demonstrate that they were unaware that they were trespassing or did not intend to do so, this could serve as a defense against the charges. Mistake of fact. A mistake of fact defense arises when the accused reasonably believed they had permission to be on the property, or that the property in question did not belong to the person alleging trespass. To successfully argue this defense, the defendant must show that their mistake was reasonable and that it negates the required intent for the trespassing charge. Consent or authorization. One of the most basic defenses against a trespassing charge is that the person accused of trespassing had the consent or license of the property owner or occupant to be on the property. Consent means that the owner or occupant of the property granted their permission for the accused to enter and remain on the property, either verbally or in writing. A license is a more formal grant of permission to enter or use another's property for a specific purpose, such as a written agreement to rent a space or obtain access to a facility. Emergency or necessity. The defense of necessity might apply if the accused trespassed on the property out of an urgent and immediate need to prevent injury, harm, or damage from an imminent danger. This defense acknowledges a person's inherent right to protect themselves, others, or property from harm, even if it requires trespassing to do so. For the necessity defense to be successfully utilized, the defendant must demonstrate that the danger they sought to avoid was greater than the harm resulting from the trespass and that there were no other reasonable alternatives available.